Welcome to the Adeptus the Brush. This morning what I'm going to do is we're finishing off the Adeptus Mechanicus Termite that we were working on yesterday, and what I need to do is, having put some weathering pigments onto the drill section, I now need to sponge on some Maskol for the next stage. Doesn't have to be 100%, just want some hint that some paint is going to come away. So hence why I've not sponged out or spooned out loads of this. So that's by and large how I want that to look. Some other bits I need to put on there though, so I'm going to leave that for a second. So I've given this a quick blast with some Xandri dust, followed by some wraith bone. So base coated it Xandri dust and just give it a little squirt of wraith bone to the centre of the point. You'll see what I mean, because there's a couple of places where it's a little darker. So it's now a case of unwrapping it and see how well we've masked this out. Hopefully there's no bleed into the deeper parts, which is what I want to make sure. Top bits I'm not so worried about, but the deeper parts are the bits that I want to make sure that I haven't got paint into. Yeah, we've got no leakage around. Yeah, it's on the edges, but we may have got a little bit of leakage here, but that's just on the top plate, so I'm not too worried. Nothing in the deeper recesses. So the next step is to remove the Maskol that we've got on there, and for that I'm going to use the sponge that we used earlier. It's got some dried Maskol on it. It's the easiest thing to remove it with, and simply all I'm doing is dragging it at the surface. Everywhere that I've got Maskol on will start to tear away. All I'll do is I'll change the direction that I'm dragging the sponge over. And those of you that have seen my Adeptus Mechanicus Termite pieces up on the channel, this is exactly the same technique that I use to paint those. Yeah, I don't mind any staining that occurs at this point, because it all adds to the eventual effect of the weathering. It can be quite aggressive. Any particular risk of removing the underlying paint, the sepia. NATO brown that I used is quite hardy and takes quite a bit of punishment, I found. So it gives you an idea of the difference between the two once they're done. Sorry if it sounds like a hamster squeaking on screen. Hopefully what we've got is something that looks like paint's been scraped away. So we've got some streaks. Just checking to see how good that is in the clean-up. Your finger can also do some of the work. You can just use your thumb. Checking we haven't got any large lumps. I'm going to continue cleaning this up off screen for a few minutes and I shall be back. Right, that is now more or less cleaned up. There are no little greebles that I can see obviously on it. What I've done off camera, just to finish it off, I've got an old brush that I've used Maskol on before that's dead to me, and I keep the older brushes just for cleaning up purposes. They do go hard, but they keep that rubbery surface, so they're quite useful for actually stripping the Maskol off. So I don't throw them away these days just because I've ruined them. It tends to actually be more useful to actually have a brush in that state for actually cleaning this stuff off. So now that I've done that, before I go much further, I'm not actually going to put any more colours on what I've just done. What I'm going to do is get the surround done now and make sure that that's finished properly. So I'm now looking for my Balthasar Gold, as I want a slightly darker colour. And this is something again that I've done on my Mechanicus Termite. I've ended up mixing a 50-50 mix of Balthasar Gold with Iron Warrior to get a very, very dark brass. It looks quite unusual. I'll show you what I mean when we get there. Just looking for the Iron Warrior that we were using yesterday. This stuff looks somewhere on the spectrum of the bronzes almost that we've used on the Necrons, but it is a gold. So I use this as the base colour and then highlight back up with Balthasar Gold once we're in the final stages. So all I'm going to do now is paint these metallic trims that we didn't do earlier. top side of it. So I'm doing all of the same part first. I've done that. Reposition it. I won't bother doing the inside face yet. Whilst I'm waiting for that to do, I'm going to do this end, make sure this is all uniform. So I'll literally spin it. Just come in and make sure these are done. Work out what that is. A large bit of pigment. Won't worry about that too much, we'll just pretend that's dirt later on. Nice things about pigments, you can move them about once they're in place, as long as you're not fixed them or sealed them with some how can we put it, varnish or something, or hair lacquer. They'll still be able to be painted over or moved about. Once you seal them with varnish, that's it. They're fixed. So I've done the bottom edge. It's just an inside face of the doesn't have to be all the way down. Just enough that we get rid of the base colour of the black and recover any of the metallics that are down that way. So just that's that one. That's rotation. So we've done that. We've also got the top to do. Missed the whole section, so let's get that done. Alright, I'm more or less happy with how that looks now. What I do need to do is come around and do that inside face. So I'm just going to get the paint a little thinner. Load the brush very carefully and brace my hand. Try and use that chiseled edge. I'll go all the way around. Slightly off camera, apologies. I may have to come back and do this a second time, just because I am using a thinner paint at this point, and the white does show through. Now, it doesn't matter if we get some overlap on the white, we're going to blend out those corners, so that's not going to be an issue. Yeah, I need to come back on this edge. Because we will be putting a wash over this, I don't need to worry about necessarily having uniform thin coats that all look like you can't see through them. It's a case of it doesn't matter for this. Again, position is almost more important than how you hold the brush. over top edge. It's starting to run out of paint there. Right, that's more or less good enough. We need it. We'll rest it that way, because that's the side that's not going to get seen so much. That's going to be dry fairly quickly. But what I do need to re-establish is those uprights that are there need to be brought back to being Iron Warrior in colour. So I'm just going to clean the brush off. Dab into that Iron Warrior, and then I'm just going to reapply some onto these bits, and then hopefully try and wash it back out later on so it blends in with the other bits. It's just because these are part of the supports, that brackets that the rail sits on. Just want to re-establish that darker metallic. A little black face of each one. Again, I'm not worrying about being too neat with this, because we are going to blend these corners out with some washes and also with some typhus corrosion, but it's no good it being white. It needs to be back to the metallics like the rest of this support is. Whilst we're here, we'll just use that to correct that little bit of white overspill that made it onto those plates. It's not a lot, it's just a little bit, but that deals with that. Helps us for the next stage with those bits. And whilst we're here, I'm just going to do these little vents, because I don't think they should be the same colour as the rest of the body. Right, before I go much further, I have an old torn up brush. I'm going to load out a little bit of Iron Warrior. When I find it, it's gone hiding on me again. My Stormhouse Silver. Of course, I put it back on the other side. Literally going to put them on the palette as such. Let's change the focus a little bit, folks, see if it's a little bit better for you. So you see the colours a little better. Take this old scratchy brush. I'm gonna not wet it and dip it into both the metals, and the idea is what I want to do is just drag some lines from the bottom to the top. Not worried about it being too heavy. I just want some drag lines across those parts before I do anything else. So the use of this brush is the fact that because it's already got lots of bits missing out of it, you don't get like a paint. Even if the brush is loaded, it's going to give you lines. So hopefully they look like scratches going up the structure. And whilst I've got this mix on the brush, I'm going to use it on the screw but going across it. What I'm after is something that looks uneven. Is what I'm trying to do is get it to look like there are scratches that go round the part as the part has moved. Try and give the illusion of a working on having function mechanism. So hopefully, just give it a few more. Looks like lots of scratches going around the part. But it's been achieved quickly with a brush with lots of bits missing. So we're more or less there now. The last couple of steps are going to involve a water change because I can't be putting metallics back on. Right, the next step involves a two-step process. Now, I have to let each panel dry as it is before I can rotate it. So this, I will show you one panel, but I will do the other two panels off camera and then show you the overall result. First of all, what I'm going to do is wet the whole panel, and then I'm going to put in some Seraphim sepia around the edges and let that bleed in. And then once that's dried, I'm going to go around that with some Agrax Earthshade and do the same thing again. Once that's dry, I then rotate the piece, do the same thing on each of the three panels. So I just liberally get the part wet. So that I know it's wet. And I'm more or less using Seraphim sepia neat and going around the edges. If you get any excess pooling, take it away. and I will stipple some of this onto the surrounding metal, just add some variety into the tones that we got. And I now need to leave that part to dry once I've wicked away this excess. So that needs to be left to dry. Once that's dried, I can do the same thing again with the Agrax, rotate the part, move on to the next one. So this is going to take a little while, folks. So the Seraphim sepia has dried. Just going to give the surface another liberal wetting with just a run of water. Same thing again. This time a bit of Agrax Earthshade, and again running it around the edges. And trying to run it down the recesses in the centre, just to pick those out with the Agrax. And I'll try and match those parts back in as well. So again, taking the pooling off where it started to pull around the edge. And I will dab some onto the surrounding metal as well. Again, just a case of letting it dry. So I'll be back in a minute. So this one's now dry, I can move on to the next one. So rotate around and I'll carry on the process and I'll come back when it's all done.